Welcome to dev.talk. Great to see everybody here tonight, and there's lots of people that have been here before, so that's great, and also lots of new people, even better. Hopefully we don't disappoint, because Ian's come from Portsmouth, and that's quite a distance to come for little old us. So we're having some technical issues tonight, so the slides are a little off. Hopefully we can make it work. It's all right, I don't work in tech at all. So let's get started. First up is Shalom. Let's give her a round of applause. This is where we find out all the technology problems that we've been having. So fingers crossed. Do you want that? Yeah, there you go.
Oh my, okay. Can I stay here?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Hello, my name is Shalom. I have to find my friend in the crowd to look at her. Apparently that's one of the things when you feel anxious, you need to do. So that's my friend. So if you see me keep staring there, don't worry, I can see every other person, but I'm just looking at my friend. Okay, so my name is Shalom, and I am a digital health master student in Bournemouth University here. And my topic is breaking into tech. So, more boring stuff about myself, you can skip it if you don't want to hear. I'm a medical doctor, worked and practiced 8 years, and then decided that I didn't want to fulfill my passion or my purpose through clinical medicine. Started doing some research on how I can improve healthcare through technology, and somewhat stumbled on digital health, and then came to Bournemouth and decided to do my master's. Actually just started in January. So breaking into tech. Now, when I was given this opportunity to speak in a room full of experts, I had to ask myself, what could a medical doctor tell a room full of tech experts, people that have been in industry for years? And this was the only topic that came into my mind. I actually made an entire slide talking about how to break into tech, especially as someone that's not been in the industry for a while. And then I was like, this feels very, I don't know, it's not given. I feel like people will leave the room and they won't really get much value from it. I needed something that you don't really know. You don't know that much about health tech. Does anyone know about health tech here? Okay, I see you. Okay, I see you. So 2 people out of maybe 26. So I feel like I can say some things and you believe me. So that's good. So breaking into tech was a whole word that came up pre-pandemic to pandemic time, when there was this whole surge, and oh my God, you're going to make a lot of money if you work in tech. And I was also excited. I also wanted to move into tech. I wanted to do something tech. And then I started to hear that the boot camps, the courses online cost $1,000, $500. And I'm like, maybe I need to stay in my industry then. I don't really need to go into tech. So that period, lots of people were going into tech. There was this influx in terms of investment, money, people. And after that, we know that there was this sort of decline. But anyways, that's not the topic. So tech, as we know, is very diverse. It's not only software or coding, as some people might assume. We actually have a lot of industries. For instance, I'm a doctor, but I can still function in the tech industry, even as a doctor. Likewise, some other people too can function in the tech industry without having to learn how to code or learn how to design or any of that stuff. So that brings me to my next topic. Now, the actual thing and actual that I'm going to talk about is digital health. What is that about? That's because when I tell people what I do, they ask me, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm a master's student in Bournemouth. And they're like, what are you studying? And I said, digital health. They're like, digital health? What's that? And I'm like, you know what? I would just make an entire presentation telling people what I study. But I don't want to just do the talking. I want it to go kind of both ways. So please, can you scan the QR code or use the code down here? There are a couple of questions as we go that you can just answer. Feel free to say anything you want. It's anonymous. I can see your name. Say your crazy thoughts. It's fine. Everyone done? Okay. I will just wait a second. Can I move forward? Okay. So, digital health. Can anyone just tell me, when they think of health tech or digital health, what is one product you can just think of, or one way you can see digital health? Just the word digital health, what comes to your mind? You can just say. Sorry?
The NHS app.
Oh, perfect. NHS app, okay.
I was thinking some sort of medical equipment.
Okay, equipment, yes. Okay, medical imaging, thank you. Yes, please. Yes, okay. So we have had, anyway, some sort of interaction. Maybe we might not even think so much about it, but we have had some sort of interaction with digital health products. The most famous one would be telemedicine. Nowadays, you can give a call to your GP and they do the consultation and then decide if you actually need to come in person, or you can have, they just prescribe the medication for you. Right now, we have the most popular one, the Flow app, that a lot of girls use to track their period. That's one big way we can see digital health manifesting. Another big one is BetterHelp. Helping, you can get therapists to talk to without having to leave your house. Very kind of, let's say, informal, but a platform where you can do that. So those are different ways we can see digital health products manifesting. So all these things I wrote here is just basically, yeah, what I have been saying. So I'm not going to bother bore you with it. It's very long. But then the problem is, when you look at other industries like fintech, e-commerce, you can see them moving so much with tech. You can see a lot of tech advancements, involvement in them. But when it comes to healthcare, there's just like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if we should accept this. I don't know why we need this. For instance, if you told someone like 10 years ago that they could furnish their apartment without leaving their house, they could literally use their phone, take the measurements from one wall to another, not have to use the tape and keep doing, they will probably think you're crazy, because how am I going to use my phone to take measurements of places? But right now you can do that. You can measure a room. You can check before you buy if the furniture looks good in your space. So all these things, we can see all these advancements in like e-commerce, fintech. But when it comes to healthcare, it's like, I don't know. We want to be the old boring guy. We just want to stay there. So that is one problem, and we're going to keep talking about that. So like I said before, digital health, we have telemedicine platforms. Another big way is the electronic health records. So when you go to the hospital these days, your doctor doesn't have to keep searching through a pile of files or papers to be able to get your documents. They're able to just access everything about you quickly on their computer or their laptop. That is one big manifestation. We have the mobile applications, we have the wearable devices, your Apple Watch, oh yeah. Your Apple Watch that tracks your step is one big one. Not only is it tracking your step, it's telling you your heart rate sometimes it even tells you, oh, you need to sit down, you're doing too much. So all that is kind of like a manifestation of digital health. And so I decided to do something fun, and I want us to be a multidisciplinary team in a digital health, let's say, company. Let's call it the Shalom Company. So functioning as whatever role you are, you're a project manager, you code, you don't code, whatever role, fine. So this is a scenario that we're going to talk about, and we're going to try to do all the steps of project management. Find a problem, think of a solution, blah, blah, blah. So let me just give you the summary. Unfortunately, Mr. Anthony Parker, 44 years old, he has lived with diabetes type 1 for 34 years. Now, in case anyone doesn't know what diabetes means, it's just when your body has too much blood glucose or blood sugar, and it's not good for you. It's harming a lot of things for you. So he has had that for 34 years. And in January 2022, he was supposed to have a checkup, but that was cancelled. Unfortunately, anyways, he was diagnosed with retinopathy. So retinopathy is this bad guy that comes when you have diabetes that is not managed properly. It gets to your eyes and damage your eyes, and then you are diagnosed with clinical blindness. So Mr. Parker, unfortunately, was diagnosed with clinical blindness after having diabetes for a long time. Now, he says that one of the reasons, you can see in the last part, I believe the lack of contact and support contributed to me developing retinopathy, as I didn't have an eye appointment for 2 years. Normally, patients with diabetes are supposed to have their eyes checked or scanned about every year, but then he could not do that, or he didn't get to do that for 2 years. So he was diagnosed with retinopathy. And if he got it maybe the year before or 2 years before, maybe the doctors would have seen some signs and helped him to manage it to avoid getting to blindness. So now, moving on to, we've seen the scenario. Everybody understands the situation? Yes, okay. So we have the scenario. Now, the first part which we would answer in the code we scanned is, like I said, we're a team. Can you think of what are the possible issues in the scenario? So what I'm talking about is, for instance, one issue can be that Mr. Park forgot his appointment because there was no form of reminder. Maybe there weren't any email reminders, maybe no application to send him some sort of reminder. So one form can be he actually just forgot his appointment. So can you just type answers into your phone telling me other problems that could have associated with Mr. Park's diagnosis? It could be problem with the system. It could be the doctor, maybe, I don't want to give answers. It could be problem with the doctor. It could be problem with the system. It could be Mr. Park's problem, another thing Mr. Park didn't do. It could be problem with the carers or relative of Mr. Park. It could be the UK problem. It could be the world problem. So any problem you think that could have associated with Mr. Park's diagnosis, can you just write that in the slide, please? So I will put our answers. I'm so sorry. Sorry, could you help? I want to project the answers, please.
Please help in mine. I'll call it going.
No, you don't have to overthink it. Just like maybe from your experience going to the hospital or talking with doctors. Oh, okay. Oh, people answered this. We'll talk about this at the end. Could you go to the next one, please? The next slide.
Like this one?
Yes. So this is what we need to answer, please. What are the possible issues in Mr. Park's scenario?
But it's not showing on
Oh, it's not showing?
Please wait for the presenter to change the slide.
Showing the first one.
Yeah, just to get the first one.
Told you we were having tech problems today.
Sorry, can we go to the Mentimeter? Maybe we should look at the answers in the first thing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Present maybe.
Where are you looking? Oh, over here.
Yeah.
Is that what we need?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's good to have a room full of tech people.
Yeah. So I can say the scenario again. Unfortunately, he's not okay. Thank you. So Mr. Park, a diabetic patient for 34 years, was diagnosed with diabetic retinopathy 2 years ago. And he says that some of the things that contributed to it is the lack of contact and support. And he missed a lot of his appointments, his eye scan, that could have helped him pick up the diagnosis quickly. Okay.
You might not be able to read the letters or...
Yes, that is one. So now we're talking accessibility problems too. So let's look at what we have. He's not tech is not tech savvy. Okay. System did not identify the urgency of missed appointments. Good. He lost his phone. Perfect. Lack of clarity around how they can get in contact. Fear of bad news. Okay, yes. It could be that intentionally he did not want to go for his appointments. He was scared that he was going to get diagnosis. Good. No automatic follow-up after he missed his appointment. Yes. So problem with the system. They're supposed to somewhat check in to find out why that person missed the appointment. If the reason could be something like he lost his phone, so that they can reschedule or do something before the next appointment next year, or something that year. His doctor misplaced his record. Okay. Can his doctor replace? Can the doctor misplace his record? Okay. Didn't understand the severity when contacted via tech and not on phone or in person. Okay, we're bashing tech now. Good, I love that. He doesn't trust tech when it comes to medical. Perfect. Not enough explanation to him about how important it is for him to do regular checkup. Perfect. So we have listed a lot of issues. Some of them we see is the fact that Mr. Park could not have understood like the new system. Maybe he has an NHS app on his phone, but he doesn't even know or understand how it works. Maybe he did not understand that he really needs the scan. It could also be that, let's not say the doctor misplaced his record, because I don't know if that is legal. So maybe the doctors he got lost in the system. Let's just say he got lost in the system. Somewhat, they couldn't get to him or something. Lack of communication, yes. He doesn't trust tech enough when it comes to medical. So we have listed a lot of problems now. Now, to the next one. Can we go to the next, please? Before we answer this, now some of the problems, let me give a backstory. This is actually my project for this semester, and I'm going to show you what my team and I created at the end of the day. But when we looked at that, apart from what you have said, we figured out other things that could be happening. Like I said about Mr. Park getting lost in the system, one of the problems now NHS is having is overload of the doctors, not enough doctors for the amount of the population. So even if maybe the doctor could literally see Mr. Park's appointment up there, he's too exhausted to get to Mr. Park because there's a Mr. John, there's a Mr. Andrew, there's a Mr. somebody and Miss somebody he needs to get to. So it could be overload of doctors or the system. So we had to think about that. We had to think from the patient's perspective and from the clinician's perspective. We can't really do much in the change of the system, so we had to work around what is existing right now and create a solution that would fit the system and the protocols they have right now. So now, let's talk solutions. So given all the problems you have identified, what are some possible solutions? So if you're saying that Mr. Park isn't used to technology, how else will you reach out to Mr. Park that you understand? If you're saying that Mr. Park does not trust technology enough for such serious situation, how else do you think you can reach Mr. Park? So remember, solutions can be a change in policy. Solutions can be actually a tool, like an application, a website or something. Solution can be having a friend that cares about his diagnosis, that will remind him, Mr. Park, you need to go to the hospital for your scan or something. So, okay, someone stole my idea. Wow. Contact next of kin as well as patient. Okay, beautiful. Okay. Now, this person is speaking my language. So, okay, perfect. Automated, yes. So, okay. No, just keep your answers coming in. We have time. Do we have time?
12 minutes.
Okay, we have time. Okay, so determine the tech literacy of the patient to customize notification and digital check-in. Okay, beautiful. Somehow communicate severity, patient at risk of losing sight, improving his digital literacy through further classes. Okay, AI solution will make the system more friendly. Okay, provide a wider variety of communication methods. Beautiful. Contact next of kings as well. Yes. So, looking at our solutions, let's score ourselves Team Shalom, do we think we've done a good job in helping Mr. Park? Nobody's confident in their solution. Wow. You think? Okay. Who else? Nobody thinks they've done a good job in helping Mr. Park? Do you think? Oh, we have okay. Okay, so let me move on. Just can we go back to the slide? So let me show you what my team and I did. Yes, please. So first, like we have done here, we identified the problem, and then actually our project said we had to make it an AI-powered digital solution. So we didn't have the choice to like do so much. But anyways, so this is what my team and I did. We thought of the solution and I designed the prototype to visualize what we had in mind. So first we made an application for Mr. Park. So you can see there are some reminders, like some of the ideas we had is sending automated reminders to Mr. Park. So that was included. We also added in some extra things to help Mr. Park. Now remember, when I was speaking about the scenario, I mentioned the fact that one of the reasons patients will have diabetic retinopathy is if their diabetes is not well controlled, because it's kind of like a complication, a side effect. So we included things like for him to be able to monitor his blood glucose. So he has something on his hand called a continuous glucose monitor that sends in the information to the application automatically. And then this information gets sent to his doctor. So his doctor is hands-on in his management. Not only is the doctor just listening to what Mr. Park has to say, like, oh, my eyes are hurting, the doctor can see the trend of the blood glucose to really know, Mr. Park, you're actually not listening to me. I said, no more donuts. You have to actually stop the donuts. So he needs to see all this. We also included, how are you doing? Basically, okay, yeah, this one. So we had a questionnaire where Mr. Park comes in every day and answers some questions. How are you doing? Is your sight blurry? So all this information, like I said, is also getting to the doctors too. So the doctors get all this information. Not only the doctor, our AI. And I'm going to introduce you to our AI called Oculex AI. Why are you not clapping? I think the name is cool. I like the name. Ocular means eye in, I think, Latin or Greek or something. So Oculex AI, yeah. So back to this previous slide. Now, back to what you had said about him not able to see. We talked about accessibility issues. So that's why we included a voice accessibility. So instead of Mr. Park trying to figure out the font and all those things, immediately opens the app, the voice activation goes on and reads out the questions or reads out the instructions to him, and he replies and the AI takes in his answer. So that was also put into account too. We also had resources from NHS. So one of the issues we mentioned previously was Mr. Park probably doesn't understand the severity of what is going on. So we included some NHS resources for the patient to be able to get information about what is going on with them. We also included their appointments. I don't have that. So we also included, I have another slide or another picture that I didn't include of the appointments where he gets to see details about all his eye scan appointment, the ones previously and the one coming in. So he's also seeing summary and details of the appointment, and he gets to understand how the doctor is thinking and what is really going on. Another thing we did was, there was no other thing we did. Okay, moving on. So this was the portal we did for the doctors. Like I said, we talked about with the patient and the clinician. Now, like I said before, we didn't mention the fact that overload on the doctors. So, oh wow, why didn't I put the picture? So we had I have something that shows the AI prioritizing the patients. So that was one thing. I think we said that in one of the solution ideas, prioritizing of patients. So our AI, Oculex AI, was going to prioritize based on all this information, the blood glucose is getting in, the symptoms is getting in, previous history from Mr. Park, all the scans. It's supposed to prioritize the patient. So when the doctors are coming in, they're not just attending randomly to people, they're actually attending to people that need urgent care first, and then going down the list. And we also included AI in suggesting solutions to the doctor. So the AI is scanning, getting all this information, and AI is like, doctor, I think Mr. Park needs to get another scan done. And just, the AI is saying, book, OCG, da. And the doctor gets to say, okay, yeah, I agree with you, or doesn't agree, say, no, I don't think what you're saying is correct. So we also had that included. I try to keep the slides short. Now I'm regressing it because there are lots of things I want to say and show. So yeah, that was what my team thought about. This is solely, or this whole situation is not just my idea. It was my team and I, but then I just took out, did the design for it, and then moved on. So yeah, I think I'm supposed to say thank you.
So does anyone have any questions?
Oh, yes, please.
What AI model you used for this solution?
So we did not develop the solution. It was kind of like, go crazy is your world. You're not developing it. Do what you think. In a hypothetical world, what would you create? So that's how we came up with this. But we didn't use any AI. We just designed what we thought would be good, and then got information from Kaggle, already existing information, to be able
It's
to...
like a learning project.
Yes, please. So like I said, it was a project for our semester.
Do you know how hard it is to provide any new solution to the real world in real hospitals? Someone came because the main problem is health tech, as I understand, it's regulation. And you just can't develop something and move it forward.
Yes.
You justify that it's actually have value.
Yes.
How hard it's in UK in general?
I just got to the UK. That's first answer. The second answer is, generally for anything health, it's not very easy because it has to be regulated. That's one of the reasons why I'm saying there's this hesitation when it comes to tech advancement into the healthcare. You have to go to a bazillion amount of ethical considerations, GDRH, so many things. Oh my God, thank you so much. I heard that a lot. That I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to hear about you again. Thank you. So there are lots of things to put into consideration, a lot of laws. So it's not very easy. But then as we see, there are lots of tools, NHS app, other things happening. So it's not impossible, but it's not easy. And you have to be ready to put in that work, because just like how we made something hypothetical, we're thinking this is amazing. If this gets used in the hospital scenario, we might see a lot of loopholes or a lot of ways that what we made is actually not that great. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Yes,
Just
please.
that kind of follow-up to that. I assume in reality a lot of these things would get like a pilot study or like a trial run.
Yes.
Subsection.
Yes. A lot of research and everything to see if it's actually useful, because you don't want to be funding something that at the end of the day you see that it's actually not useful. Maybe something as simple as changing the policy or employing more doctors could have done the job. Yes,
I have a
please.
question regarding how would you measure the effectiveness of something like this? So I wonder whether you've thought of overall trend analysis of prevention of these things. Is that one of the things? But overall, how would you say, okay, this app, let's assume it's out in the world. How would we determine how successful it is?
Okay, so apart from our research, working as my team had other people that were doctors that work in other countries, and I've also worked in other countries. And working with patients with diabetes, one of the things is they always either they forget their medications, forget to take their medications, or forget to take their scan, because diabetes is such a big disease, but sometimes it's so lower down. People don't take it seriously. it's not cancer, it's like, it's diabetes. Like, it's like flu for them, while it's something really big. So when you're telling them, I'm hammering on the fact that you need to be on your medication, some people don't take it seriously. So we know that these problems exist as doctors that have been working with patients. So we know that little changes like this, for instance, the notification one I said, even if it doesn't have to be an application, maybe an email reminding Mr. Park about his appointments could have maybe helped him, prompted him to go in for the eye scan. Yes, please.
How much health tech did you encounter in your previous career as a GP?
I think I worked in Tanzania, and in Tanzania there weren't a lot of it. It was more of like, we're so happy to have an electronic health record. Yeah, I feel like that answers the question. That was like, oh my God, we're working with computers, we don't have to write papers. So that was like the big thing. So after working there, that was one of the things that inspired me to come into tech, because I saw so many gaps in the hospital. I'm like, this is such a process, like you're spending a lot of time doing things and you're asking yourself, oh my God, a computer can just do this thing for me, and I move on to the next patient. So all these, inspired me to study digital. Yes, please.
What do you think about the ethics of letting an AI judge the priority of people? Because it's kind of...
It's a tricky question.
Yeah, okay, so one of the things we had to do in our project is also say like further recommendation. And one of the things we put in our further recommendation is for the AI for our system to have a confidence level for the AI. So when the AI says like, oh, I think Mr. Park needs to change his medication, it's giving like a percentage of the information and giving us sources. So that's why we also put it that the AI is not giving the final decision. The doctor has to agree, because ultimately the doctor knows best, maybe not knows best, but knows what's going on. So we want the doctor to actually be in control. We're not trying to make the AI in control of the doctor.
There are other ways you can do it as well. You can have a governance AI that actually is governing the AI that's producing the service.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we've done.
I guess A/B testing isn't particularly... You can't, if you think one thing's better than another, how can you...
Isn't that what clinical trial is, though?
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Great.
All right, just final bit. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope I didn't bore you. And it's not now going to my LinkedIn. My LinkedIn was there. Please connect with me. I'm a student and I'm looking for opportunities for internship and subsequently a sponsored postgraduate job. So if you know somebody that likes me, if you like me, you feel like I'm function. Like I said, I designed that. So I'm into learning how to do product design, also project manager, also yapping, also creating content. I know how to edit. So anything you have for me, LinkedIn is open. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Tech issues. Continue. Thank you, Shalom. That was very good. Thank you very much. We're going to take a short break now, but I have to point to our supporters. Bournemouth University, obviously, because we're in their building, very kindly lent us this room tonight. Just Pick One UK, the YouTube channel, my wife's YouTube channel over here, who's providing all the cameras and the editing of the videos that go up on YouTube. And Reconnect Conference, we'll talk a bit more about that later if you're interested in a local tech conference. We've got 20 minutes, let's have a chat. And then we'll come back and we'll see Richard's talk. Great, thank you. So we're going to get started now with Richard, who's from Brough, and he's going to tell us about the current landscape of open source AI.
Hello, I'm Richard. So I'm going to start with what do we mean when we say open source. When we talk about open source software, we're usually meaning that everything that's required to run that is available under, it's publicly available under some sort of open license. And with these big machine learning models, we're not just talking about the code and the traditional assets. we're talking about the model weights as well, which are huge arrays of numbers that populate the neural network and allow them to model whatever it is that they're modeling. The ubiquitous implementation in modern machine learning is the neural network. And when we say model really, we mean the whole system. That's the code and those model weights and any assets that we need. And unless I say otherwise, when I'm saying something's open, I'll mean that the code and the weights are available under some sort of open license. I'm going to start with video generation, just because it's seeing such rapid improvements at the moment. Just a few short months ago, open source video generation models were such a long way behind the likes of OpenAI Sora and Runway's Gen 3. We had the best that we had sort of late last year was Stable Diffusion Video and some of the models that would take image generation models and extend them to do very, very short animations. That's really changed in the last few months. We've had models from Alibaba and Tencent. Tencent's Hunyang Video, it gives very good competitive outputs. It does have some license restrictions though, whereas there is One AI from Alibaba, which is it's a family of models, and that's under the permissive Apache 2 license, which means you can pretty much do whatever you want with it. The outputs from the largest variant are really, really good. They're quite comparable to Sora and Gen 3, although Google's VO3 that they showed up yesterday is maybe another level. To run the biggest one, however, you need a massive GPU. It's 80 gig of VRAM to even get started, and even on a H100 or something like that, you need minutes to generate a few seconds of video. If you're prepared to wait for your videos and you've got lots of system RAM, you can knock them out on a CPU or an accelerated processor like on an Apple. There are, however, smaller variants that are a lot faster and do give quite good results considering, and you can just about fit them in a high-end consumer GPU. I've got an example video that's, can get it up. So this now is Zero Scope, which was one of the better open source models until recently. You can see the quality is just not quite what you might have come to expect from some of the commercial services. But that was cutting edge until quite recently. Now this is the smallest version of One AI, and then these videos are going to go through the progressively larger ones. You can see that the results are certainly better than that you saw in that first clip. But that's not looking a million miles away from a very similar demo that OpenAI was showing off about a year ago.
Which one was that, sorry?
That was One AI. That was the big one that you'd need the 80 gigabyte GPU to run.
So you can run it slowly on like an Apple silicon?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, or if you've got even a Threadripper with a lot of fast system memory, yeah, or any CPU with a lot of system memory if you wait. The one thing there though, you probably PyTorch will require 32-bit ints a lot of the time on CPU, so you might need to go to 160 gig of system RAM. There are a number of well-regarded open source computer vision projects from Meta, which is normally known as Meta AI, formerly known as Facebook AI Research, including Segment Anything 2, which you can see there, those are the outputs from it. That's it picking out basically all the different bits of an image for further analysis. It'll generate embeddings on each one that you can then process to figure out what they are. That's quite heavyweight. There's also a derived version called Samurai that will do real-time object tracking. So it'll go from frame to frame, and you can correlate what was there from one frame to the next over a period of time. There's a much more lightweight family of models called YOLO, You Only Look Once. That's a whole series of models that's, I think it's now up to about version 11, there's different versions with different sizes for different compute requirements. You usually do need to fine-tune that to get results anything close to this, but once you have, it's much more lightweight. You don't require particularly heavyweight hardware. People even run it on Raspberry Pis and things like that to analyze video. Speaking of fine-tuning, when we say fine-tuning, we're talking about training an already working model further on specific data using far less data and computing power than we used in the first place, or than was used in the first place to train the model from scratch. The results of the original training are still there, but you've now taken the model in a new direction. In the center below, there's a fairly realistic looking image of Barack Obama and Donald Trump generated by Stable Diffusion Extra Large, and then two images from exactly the same prompt and exactly the same, all the same code, just a different version of the fine-tuned version of the model that's been taken in the direction of those particular art styles. That fine-tuning data wouldn't have had any information in it to tell it what, any images of Trump or Obama. That would just be known from the model. That would still be there from the original training of the model. For automatic speech recognition, long after going closed source with its flagship large language models, OpenAI did release Whisper, which is still the cutting edge model in terms of open models anyway, for transcribing voice audio, or at least models derived from it are. It's really, really fast. A gaming laptop, you can transcribe a 30-minute podcast in like 5 minutes, and there are faster versions still now, and there's hardly any errors. It just gives you a very good transcription of whatever you throw at it. And there are a lot of products and startups now that are using this as kind of the core of their offering. Text-to-speech, there are 2 new models that have appeared in the last couple of months, both under fully permissive Apache 2 licenses. Kokoro gives speech quality that would have been really cutting edge a couple of years ago. It's only 82 million parameters. It'll run on a mobile CPU. It'll run from WebAssembly, even JavaScript in real time. Really fast, very good results. There's a bigger model called Dia, also under the same permissive license. It's 20 times the size, 20 times the compute requirements, but it's absolutely up there with the best offerings from Google Cloud and Azure. And that was trained by a 2-person startup in South Korea, although I'm not quite sure how much money they got to train it. Probably quite a bit of investment. Both of these will generate outputs in quite a wide array of voices, and they can be fine-tuned to do more still. Moving into the area of large language models, I'm going to start with a little bit of a timeline, because things could well have turned out very differently if these early transformer models hadn't been open. The publication of what's now considered a landmark academic paper in machine learning from a research team at Google showed the effectiveness of the transformer architecture, and that came to then dominate natural language processing. BERT from Google soon followed, which turns textual natural language into a numerical representation and actually using the context of the words around it and even previous sentences in a way that just was really unprecedented at the time. Models like BERT are now used in absolutely everything that converts natural language into some sort of machine-readable input, including modern search. In the same year, OpenAI were open back then, and they published their own paper with the first model of their GPT series, which was fully open source, fully released as an open model, and it outperformed all previous AI text generation. For those of you who aren't familiar with how generative LLMs are trained, they're trained on samples of text with the objective of being able to predict what comes next. Originally, these were just regular snippets from books and articles, and they're very good then at completing sentences or even coming up with the next sentence. There's an example there from OpenAI's GPT-2 release. Back then, that was quite a big deal. The base version of models are still trained in the same way before being trained on something more specific, such as this. The chat and instruction models that we use today are extensively fine-tuned on samples that are samples that are formatted in a particular way. This conversation here is marked with tags to indicate one message, in this case the question, and then the next message is the answer, and the tags are there to separate it, and that can go onto a whole list of messages in a long conversation. The model basically, if you feed it this, if you're typing into the UI, and then it'll, based on its samples, it'll continue to generate an answer. A couple of years ago, open source LLMs dramatically caught up, well, not completely caught up, but dramatically closed the gap on some of the big closed source services by Meta releasing its Llama 2 family, and also the Technical Institute of the United Arab Emirates released its Falcon series. They were both under fairly permissive licenses. Many projects have appeared around fine-tuned versions of those, and the newer Llama and Falcon models that have been released since have broadly followed on with the permissive licenses with one or two extra restrictions here and there. In the last couple of years, these have been joined by Gemma, Qwen, Phi from Microsoft, and of course DeepSeek. There are multimodal variants of 2, which take images as input as well as the text. Something I haven't mentioned yet is chain of thought, where an LLM is prompted or trained on an answer in a step-by-step manner. This was first proposed in a Google Brain paper in 2022. On the slide, there's an example from that paper, basically showing where it's by just generating that extra little bit of output, it's actually resulting in a correct answer rather than just immediately putting something that superficially looks right but actually isn't. This is an example from the 2-year-old Llama 2 7B model that does kind of output something that looks a little bit like an explanation in the answer to the question, but it's more in a way that you would find in a textbook or where somebody's just written how to answer it on Reddit or something like that. And it's just providing a superficially similar answer, but it's actually garbage. The newer Llama 3.1 model of a similar size, however, outputs 40% more tokens and does output steps. So it's clearly been trained to do that. And it's been fed training data that's in that format because they know it's effective based on that chain of thought paper. And that one gives the correct answer and a sensible explanation. So it was, the reasoning models take this to another level. Unfortunately, my slide is a little bit messed up there. So it was hard to miss the media storm when DeepSeek launched its R1 model with a corresponding consumer app and the cut price API service that came with it. R1 takes inspiration from OpenAI's O series and other similar models that output very comprehensive chains of thought. The R1 marks its chain of thought with 2 tags to say, I'm starting thinking, I'm ending thinking. These allow the user interface to filter it and just present it in a little minimized box so you don't have to look at it if you don't want to. So this in green that you can't really see, but you You could when it was on Google Slides, but you can't now. I've exported it. So that there, believe me, is much less text, and that's the actual answer. All this behind is the chain of thought output that R1 spat out in answer to the same question that was on the last 2 slides. It's 25 times as much output as Llama 2 generated for the same question, but it's proved itself to be very good at giving right answers to quite complex problems. The main R1 model uses an architecture called Mixture of Experts. This is a very, very large model to load. I think it's about 400 gig. It does save speed and energy by only activating part of the model at any one time. So hence, they consider each part that gets activated depending on the inputs to be a different expert. There's also the R1 Distill family, where there's a range of sizes from really, really small 1.5 billion parameter models up to the 70B. These take a Llama or Quen model and fine-tune it with the output from the big DeepSeek R1 model. Actually, the 70B uses more energy to generate the answers than the full-size R1 does, but it's physically being smaller, you can actually fit it on, if you've got a couple of high-end consumer NVIDIA cards in a gaming PC, you can just about run it. And it's there or thereabouts, similar sort of quality output, not far off anyway. QWQ from the Quen family is worth mentioning here. That's far, far smaller than R1 and works on the same principle. That'll, again, output the big long chain of thoughts, and for its size gives pretty good outputs. Quen 3 was released earlier this month, and that will optionally trigger a reasoning chain of thought depending on what the inputs are. You can give it a system tag to say that, basically do the thinking bit, and it'll go down that path. A note about energy. The amount of energy used by Gen AI models varies massively with the size and the output verbosity. Those charts show 1,000-time difference between GPT-01 and the smallest Llama 3 model. The 01 to generate a page of text is using about as much energy as it takes to drive a Nissan Leaf 200 meters down the road. That's a page of actual final output text, not the chain of thought is contributing to that. Fine-tuning can really help here. A small model fine-tuned on a specific use case will outperform a far larger model at that use case. So, and one of the great things about the open source community is that people are publishing these fine-tuned specialist variants all the time that you can find and use with far less energy. Fine-tuning itself, of course, does cost energy, and if nobody uses the output, that's not great, but as long as people do, then it's very quickly offset. A look at image generation. Back when DALL-E and Midjourney first appeared, image generation from a text prompt was just dominated by them. There was like StyleGAN, which worked in a very different way, but didn't take a text prompt. You had to train a model on particular types of images, and then two competing models one would try to fool the other that it was a real image effectively, and then you ended up with something that was a very good image, but you put in an awful lot of effort and an awful lot of compute to get there. Stable Diffusion changed that, and it was not far off DALL-E and Midjourney's efforts at the time, especially the XL variant that came a little later. The many open projects based on Stable Diffusion started to appear. They included things like filling in the blanks, turning sketches into photorealistic images, acting on a prompt to do something like change the cats to dogs in an image, and of course all the fine tunes that you can find all different, everything you can imagine really. In the latest version, unfortunately, of Stable Diffusion, the license has completely changed, and they've now got quite restrictive license terms and even claim ownership of any derived projects that you do based on it. Last year, Flux Schnell and Flux Dev were released by Black Forest Labs, a German startup from some of the original team behind Stable Diffusion. Only the smaller Flux Schnell is available under a properly permissive license, but it's very highly regarded by the community, and it seems to have become the new sort of focal point of open source image generation. It doesn't seem to fare well with complex prompts compared to its larger siblings and compared to Stable Diffusion 3. But the results are very good. The Flux Dev model is actually open for non-commercial use. You can download the weights and use them, but if you use it in a commercial product, you're breaking the license terms. 2 months ago, there's a new family of models from China called HiDream. These have been released. All of them are under the MIT license, which is fully permissive, even the largest ones. These are really good, and they're starting to gain traction very, very quickly. I imagine that the focal point might shift to them. Frameworks, some open source frameworks underpin all of this. You have TensorFlow from Google, PyTorch from Meta that abstract away all the neural network code and the optimized implementations on different GPUs. They're both written in C++, and provide Python and C++ APIs. TensorFlow, even though it's kind of firmly in second place now, it's been improving its other language support, and they've just announced that the Java version's stable. So you've got you've got a Java API there available that's at the same sort of level that people have been using from Python. GGML was born out of a desire for lightweight way to run some of the bigger LLMs on CPUs and on smaller consumer GPUs. It gives very good quantization, so it'll allow you to quantize some of the models down so you're only using like 4 bits per weight and things like that. So you're getting like a 13 billion parameter model on an 8 gigabyte GPU. That's then used as the engine behind Llama CPP, OLlama, Cobalt CPP, all built on top of this, and give nice ways of you running things like Llama and Gemma locally without having to touch the code. Hugging Face transformers and diffusers, which is for images, are higher level Python frameworks that sit on top of PyTorch and TensorFlow. They enable most common use cases, including training with a minimal amount of code, and they're probably the best place to start if you want to start fine-tuning some of these models using your own data. LangChain's even higher level, and it helps orchestrate passing the outputs of LLMs between each other, and indeed utilizing a lot of the functionality in transformers. There are a number of friendly user interfaces for generating text and images. Comfy UI and Forge are user interfaces for open image generation models. Cobalt CPP it's a nice browser-based UI for running the large language models that you can load. It's based on GGML and Llama CPP. It'll basically allow you to download an LLM from Hugging Face Hub or somewhere and just load it in locally and then chat with it through a browser-based UI. It's also got creative writing modes, and it's now added image generation and text-to-speech support in there as well, and speech-to-text, so you can use it as like a voice AI as well. You can change the alignment of models using quite moderate amounts of fine-tuning. This can be a little bit problematic potentially. There's an academic in New Zealand David Rosado, produced two models that he called right-wing GPT and left-wing GPT, conservative and progressive, and demonstrated in his paper how they might argue with each other. And it doesn't really require a lot of resources to change the bias of a model like this, although you might need to reintroduce some information that might have been censored in one of the original models. For instance, if you wanted to reintroduce some of the things that might be censored in some of the Chinese models, for instance, things like that. The bad stuff, and I really had to resist the urge to put a picture of Terminator 2 on this, but we're all becoming well aware of the misinformation and worse that's being enabled by AI. Deepfakes can be humorous, or they can be attempts to completely destroy someone's reputation, or worse. Generative text has the potential to help spread misinformation and sway public opinion, and unfortunately it is true that open source LLMs running on someone's own hardware, or open source image generation on someone's own hardware, is a lot harder to keep control of, for good or for worse, than closed services that can be filtered relatively easily. There was a project called GPT-4chan that used 3 years worth of messages from the unfiltered message board 4chan that generated its own hate speech and abusive messages, horrific as that was. Thankfully that was a while ago and used quite a rudimentary model, but it's quite hard to imagine that sort of thing isn't being done using more powerful, more modern models in a more subtle way to fill the internet with bile, basically. Digital plagiarism is also a concern. Some of the early image generators you probably saw stories in the media about how they were being used to target the works of specific artists, like give me an image in the style of this person. That's generally been stopped now in the training data. They tend not to tag with this is the work of a particular living working artist. So generally people can't do that on the latest models. However, if someone's set on plagiarism and they've downloaded a model for themselves and they want to fine-tune it on the works of a specific artist, they're actually going to get better results, and there's not really anything you can do to stop that. The license terms forbidding it aren't going to prevent any bad actors. Much of what I've mentioned here will work on a mid-range gaming laptop. Even without a GPU, the image generators will still be usable if you don't mind waiting a little bit. And the smaller generative text models will also be usable. NVIDIA GPUs do still dominate the whole space, although AMD GPUs are supported by most of the runtimes. Many modern integrated processors, with Apple leading the way, do have specialist cores to accelerate neural networks and will allow the use of system memory rather than needing so much VRAM. However, there's still a huge performance gap to NVIDIA. NVIDIA's memory bandwidth, if nothing else, is just so high in comparison to system memory. Segment Anything 2, you can just about analyze real-time video on a decent gaming laptop. And even without that, you can still use it, obviously, offline to analyze the video later and process the results. There's always the option of running these on a cloud VM, which does, of course, negate the privacy benefits of running stuff on your own hardware, but at least you're not locked into any specific service, and you can always change hosting provider if you built a product based on an open source model. If you build a business based on depending on a service rather than software that you control, there are risks to that. The service can always disappear if it no longer makes financial sense to the company that's offering it. That has happened. Some of OpenAI's models have been discontinued just because they they were no longer interesting to OpenAI and not profitable. You also need to have confidence that your input data, which might have sensitive or proprietary information in it, isn't going to be sent somewhere with different data protection regulations or used to train future models that might then decide to regurgitate it in some way. Open source models can be customized and innovated on depending on your specific needs. And even though some closed source services do allow you to some elements of fine tuning with specific data, ultimately you don't really have control and ultimate ownership of what results. It's just there in your account in that cloud service. There's a vast selection of open source fine-tuned models on Hugging Face Hub, and there's community all around the world building these. There's so many options to do something innovative, and I'd encourage you to look there as the starting point. And that's it. If anyone's got any questions.
For the LLMs that do code generation,
yes.
Is that just a special instance of text generation?
So yes, it is. Particularly the ones that do actual code continuation, they're slightly different sample format to the one that I showed you there. So quite often they'll be trained on samples that have beginning, and then there'll be a tag, and then there's kind of what follows the actual bit of code in the sample, and then another tag, and then the actual bit of code in the sample. So they're kind of trained to go tag start, tag, start of the code, another tag, end of the code, another tag, then the middle. And what you want, because it's called fill in the middle, and you basically want it to be able to generate code that fits in the middle of what you give it.
An agent-based approach, such as make this quicker in general.
Yes, those are very much just specialized versions. In fact, to be honest, nowadays, some of the biggest ones that's part and parcel of the training data. So your R1s and certainly some of the closed ones, like the Claude 3.7 is very good at code generation, and it's no different to the one that's used for any other purpose.
I think where there was the process of identifying sort of objects within an image or video.
Yes.
Do you know whether it's possible to sort of modify the video in real time and say, if you've got a football match playing and you want to switch out all of the players for different characters from the mouse club or something? Is that something that...
It's absolutely possible. Yeah, I mean, in fact, that's how your video chat filters work. To be honest, it's that's absolutely that's a real use case.
If I wanted to a model, like a given image, and it generates a bunch of tags of what's in that image. So like if I was going from a universal library, what's the latest and greatest and open for that?
Right. So really, you're talking about a multimodal large language model, really, aren't you? So probably the Llama 4, in terms of the open ones, that they use the mixture of experts approach again. So you probably just need a lot of memory. There's the Llama 3.2 as well is all right at that. The other thing is, if you wanted to do a more classic machine learning computer vision approach, where something like YOLO will give you a list of embeddings. So it will, there's a model called CLIP that's used as the basis for a lot of these vision models and indeed the multimodal ones. You then need a language head that will convert that, but there's plenty of those that exist that will just literally convert that into a list of tags of things that are in that image. But if you want a description, then you need the multimodal LLM.
What would you say is the most performant model for its size in terms of like open source language models for like projects at home, like home system?
Right. In terms of a pure interaction, I mean, Llama 3.3 is excellent, but it's probably a bit heavyweight. It's a 70 billion parameter model. That was really, really good for the size of it. If you wanted to go a bit smaller, Gemma probably, the Gemma 3 family. Some of those are down to being small enough that you'll fit them on a consumer GPU or MacBook or whatever. Yeah. Right.
In terms of creating data sets and embeddings for training and refining models, where do you suggest sort of starting?
Creating or finding them?
Either or.
Right, okay. So again, Hugging Face Hub, there's absolutely tons of data sets on there. And there's, are you particularly interested in language or are you interested in images?
Probably more so images, I think.
Okay. Have a look at RoboFlow. They're a commercial company that do computer vision, but they've made available an absolute load of like image data sets as well under open licenses. Yeah.
What's the best for modifying existing images? So I mean, a lot of the image generation tools seem to not understand context in a lot of times. So just basically, they'll do what you tell it to do, but then they'll just add some random function in with that.
Yeah.
You don't do that.
So probably you can't be sure it's not going to happen. Generally, the bigger model you go for, then the less likely it is to happen. And the other thing is that a lot of them will allow you to put a mask, so you can specify which part of the image that you're okay with it modifying. And you can maybe make a little bit of a pipeline to, if you don't want to manually tag every image with the mask, you can use a vision model to mask off the bits that the thing that you're interested in changing first, and then you pass that to the image gen model with your instructions. So it's really about building a pipeline there that'll do what you want.
You can get better results just by being positive in the prompts, as opposed to, rather than saying don't give this person a beard.
Right.
Just then
it notices beard.
Yeah,
Put a beard.
if you're positive, it seems to like that better.
Fair enough.
So I was interested, did you use, when you were running these LLMs, do you use Comfy UI? Because we've been using Open Web UI, but is that what you...
Right. To be honest, no. With image stuff, I'm just doing everything from PyTorch or Hugging Face diffusers. We've had a use of the UIs. The UI that I do tend to fall back to quite a bit is Cobalt CPP for mostly for the LLM interactions, just because it's very easy to. I always have it there installed on the machine.
Yeah. And with this evolving so rapidly, do you have any recommendations on how you keep up to date with this without getting lost?
Wow.
That's a very difficult question.
Yeah.
It just seems like you could get on top of this and then within a week.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, literally, if I delivered this talk 2 months ago, half of the slides would have been different. Look on Hugging Face at the trending models, because anything that's new and great is just going to fly to the top of that list. So that's one way. There are certain Reddits that kind of keep on top of this. Local Llama is one. It's not just for Llama, but it seems to be, there's a quite community of enthusiasts about open LLMs generally.
Great.
Yeah. Hey.
Is there any AIs that are trying to detect if something's AI generated?
There are. That's an active field of research, definitely. Yes, people are trying, and other people are trying to circumvent it. So yeah. Yeah.
He does it, but it also does suggested solutions as well, so I feel like it could get itself improved.
Google just released something yesterday, didn't they? The developer conference.
In all honesty, I've not watched the whole thing yet, but yeah, I've seen some of the stuff, and they said, yeah, there you go. There's another thing that's I've not even had chance, apart from seeing the VO3 demos, to even integrate that into the speech.
Great.
Right.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Richard.
Thank you.
Good. So, okay, just final few things. So I want to say thank you to the speakers, the volunteers and the supporters for tonight. Richard's come all the way from London to speak with us tonight. And all this, sorry, I'm getting confused the last time. A long way tonight to be with us here tonight. And the speakers always put in a lot of effort to not only be here, they spend their own money to come here as well, and put a lot of time putting these presentations together. So I just want to thank the speakers and the volunteers and the supporters again. So I'm sure some of you have been taking pictures or things like that tonight. So if you're writing about us or doing pictures or posting on LinkedIn or whatever, please share with us. There's lots of ways to get in contact. Come join our Discord server. At the moment, I am shouting to myself in there, but there are people supposedly listening. They just don't reply back. Yeah, so this is kind of where you can interact with dev.talk. So please share with us. We do collate all the photos into a shared photo album that's linked on our website. The videos will go up on YouTube eventually. I have yet to publish last month's, but it's ready to go. Thanks to Kerry again for improving on my rubbish edit. So that will go up tomorrow, I think. And this one will go up sometime soon. I should tell you about Reconnect Conference, one of our supporters. Enjoy the graphic. It took me ages to do that. No. So we've got 17 speakers, 4 tracks, one-day tech conference here in Bournemouth, just down the road. You might see Adam, he's in the audience somewhere. There he is, right at the back. Hi, Adam. He's one of our speakers. It's a ticketed event, but if you want a 10% discount, dev.talk costs you £64. There are 25 tickets left. It's 200 delegates, 200 tickets available, and we're down to 25. So July 4th, if you want to come, please do. It's going to be awesome, and 17 speakers all lined up, ready to go. There's some very good speakers and workshops that we're doing as well, so it's going to be busy. Please come along. Like I said, 10% discount, dev.talk. So do you want to volunteer at Reconnect, or perhaps even sponsor it? I know there's some companies in the building. Gordon, looking at you. Hi. Perhaps you might want to know somebody who want to sponsor Reconnect and actually help us run this conference. It's a community-led conference. It's not for profit. Costs a lot of money to put the conference together, and the only way we can do that is sponsors paying for it, really. But also, you could be a volunteer. It costs you a couple of hours of your day, and you get a free ticket to come, so free food. You get to spend the day with myself and Simi and all the other people, which may be a downside, I'm not sure. But tickets are selling out fast, and I think there are only about 3 spots left for volunteers. So there's about 20 of us in total to run the day. So if you want to be a volunteer, free ticket, a couple of hours for the day, then get in contact. Other local tech-based events, there's loads of them. I've had to organise this now. Tectonic is the week after next, and they're joining up with Bournemouth 2600 to do a really cool one in Bournemouth Uni down in Bournemouth, not here. But there's a whole bunch of them. What's the new ones? We've got Hampshire AI just added, PyData Southampton, PHP Hants, Women Tech Hampshire, Developer South Coast. I think, Ian, you go to that one, don't you? Yeah, so Developer South Coast has got some really good speakers coming up the next 2 months. So get yourself down to Southampton for those. Again, all of these are free, ignoring these 2. But they're all free. They're all happening in our area. So I should tell you about the next event. We're not doing this kind of event. We're going to do a networking event at Patch in Bournemouth, and we're joining forces with Reconnect. So it's going to be a mixer kind of a networking event. There's a bar open, there's going to be a quiz. It's kind of going to be a fun night for a couple of hours, and it's the week before Reconnect. So you'll get to meet some of the speakers who are coming. You can talk with Simi and myself as well as the organisers. It should be a fun night. Kerry's going to do our quiz. She's already got some bonkers ideas for our quiz, so it should actually be a very fun night. That's a free event happening in Patch on June 25th, and that will replace dev.talk in June. We'll get back to normal in July, assuming I can secure another venue. And that's it. So thanks for coming to dev.talk. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. We've got about 10 minutes or so before we get thrown out. So mingle, say hello to people. Great. Thank you all for coming.